things of cheap victory, like, well, even if you kill a champion, it doesn't really matter if you kill a champion by poisoning, right? Or when he's asleep. So you want to, that matters, right? I'm going to think less of you if you get a cheap victory with a champion. So you need to fight a champion in a stand-up battle with a champion. All right? So that's step 3. We create in bello rules. That means we create rules in the fight. All right? We start to gamify battle with each other. So that means we have to start communicating as champions with each other about, okay, you beat me at the battlefield at 8, if it's not raining. And if that's not a joke. I mean, during the golden age of honorable warfare, they had all sorts of conventions like that. They would agree on the field of battle weeks in advance. They wouldn't fight in inclement weather. They had all sorts of rules like that. Just one little example, and this is old. I don't want you to think this is European or, from chivalry or something like that. The Rig Veda, 1,000 years BC, has really developed in bello rules of this sort. So here's one passage. It advises that one should strike another only after giving due notice. This is talking about warfare. A foe engaged with another should never be struck. Likewise, elephants should only oppose elephants, and so the chariots, cavalry, and infantry only their opposite. One should not strike one who is fatigued and frightened, weeping, and unwilling to fight, one who is ill and cries for quarter, or one of tender years or advanced age. In fact, a Shishya, which is their warrior caste, should defend even his enemy if entreated with joined hands. Wow. Okay, so this is very gamified warfare. And the last step is what we'll call rank-based identity. And because of increased rank-based sensitivity among the Reds and among the Blues towards each other, among the Reds, rank sensitivity among the Reds. And this increased dialogue across across camps with each other among champions. Champions come to see themselves as champions, not as Reds or Blues. So a champion Red will see himself more like a champion Blue than another low status Red. Okay? And you see that all the time as well. So for example, during the Third Crusade in the 12th century, Richard I Lionheart, who is one of the West's great warriors of all time, went to go take the Holy Land from Saladin, who was mentioned in that Gold's video. Saladin, the great caliph, who of an Islamic state that ironically he was a Kurd, they had essentially, I don't know, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, Richard I and Saladin developed a bit of a bromance. They really respected each other. And here's just one real-life episode that happened during the Battle of Jaffa. Here's a passage from the history. The Saracens, flying from the field, came to Saladin, who was watching the contest, and in conversation with him, pointed out Richard, who was standing up among his knights on a small rising ground. "Why, he is on foot!" exclaimed Saladin. Richard was on foot. His favorite charger was killed under him that morning, and as he had come from Acre, haste by sea, there was no other horse at hand. So Saladin said that this was not as it should be. The King of England, said he, should not fight on foot like a common soldier. He immediately sent over to Richard with flag of truce 2 splendid horses. Richard accepted the present, and during the remainder of the day he fought on one of the horses which his enemy had thus sent him. Okay, that really happened. Other things that really happened: Saladin sent fruit and doctors to Richard when Richard was sick. I mean, get this, right? Richard is an invader. This is a holy war. And these guys are acting this way, towards each other at least. Richard knighted Saladin's nephew. And Richard was so impressed with Saladin that he offered his brother, Salafin. Richard offered his own sister in marriage so that they could maybe co-rule Jerusalem. And, people freaked out over this proposal. Richard said, well, maybe he could convert. But they're good people, that's the point. I mean, I would be proud to have my sister marry, Saladin's brother, because he was seeing Saladin as a champion, as right, more than it. That mattered more than the fact that he's Muslim. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So what Hobbes did was attempt a sort of moral alchemy. Hobbes wanted to say, look, given these sort of base motives of prudential, maximizing self-interest and so forth, in the right situation, we can get people to care about this golden value of justice. And likewise, the sort of alchemy that I'm trying to show happens is, imagine these base motives of being a competitive person, status conscious, and so forth, and you can take those leaden values and turn them into a sort of the golden values of agonistic honor. And this isn't how honor actually evolved, came about, but I have, no one has really written on this, I have views about this, but I mean, it's a mythological account of how we would get honor if we didn't already have honor, because it serves a certain sort of purpose. So just like the class. Okay. So let's talk about the philosophy a little bit. Let's talk about the philosophy of what agonistic honor is. And it requires us to think about the difference between what philosophers call the good and the right. So, goodness, is probably an unanalyzable term, but let's mean by the good whatever prima facie makes something desirable. So, for instance, whatever makes one life better than another life, or one state of affairs better than another state of affairs. So, for instance, if we imagine two worlds equal in all respects, except one world has more pleasure than the other world, we would say, oh, then this is a better world. Or two lives equal in all sorts of, equal in every way, except one life has more pleasure than the other, or more health than the other, or more beauty than the other, we'd say that's a better life. But then there's this question about, well, what are the rules about getting the goodies? What are the rules that constrain our pursuit of the good? That's the question of morality, that's rightness, that's the question of rightness. What's the correct response to the good? And I think that one of the main reason that we're so bad about defining honor is that the word honor gets used both to name a theory about what's good in life and a theory about how properly to get this good, the theory of the right. So let me tease those two apart. In one sense, the word honor just means prestige or good high social standing or respectability in the eyes of your fellows. Okay? And that is a very axiological sense of honor. That's just honor as a good thing. Okay? But then there is this other sense of honor that seems to suggest that there are rules about how you get this good thing of honor. So there's honor in the sense of how properly to get honor. There's honor in the sense of how properly to get prestige. That's reflected in phrases like honorable, she's an honorable woman, or the word honorable in general. A man of honor, I owe it to my honor, things like that. So there's a sense that we have that, and somehow people can be entitled to honor or deserve honor, okay, even if they're not in fact honored. So that means that we're thinking of honor in some sort of moral sense now. And so one dominant view of what honor is a right to respect. Frank Stewart has a great book on honor written in the mid-90s where he first rolled out this view of honor as a right to respect, and many honor researchers have followed him on that. But what that doesn't quite tell us is, well, tell me the principles that give you this right to respect. Fill in, right, what it is that gives me the right to respect. And there will be many different answers to that question. But I'm looking at one answer to that question that says, obeying agonistic norms are what give you a right to respect. And what do I mean by agonism? Well, the agon is a Greek word for a competition of a certain sort, a contest, really. A contest meant to draw out and prove excellence. And it could be in an arena of battle, hand-to-hand combat, but it could also be poetry or flute playing or anything like that. And they would have, agons of poetry. And what the agon does is it ranks competitors for their excellence. And if you're high ranked, it doesn't come with any sort of power or authority to get to boss anyone around. You're just proven to be better. You have more of this excellence. And we see this a lot in sports. Because what athletics are supposed to do is help us see who's better than each other with respect to whatever excellence of the sport is involved. So for instance, there's a public ranking of excellence when it comes to Big 12 football. Now this is actually a few days old when I was preparing this. You guys had a big victory recently, right? But as of a few days ago, last week, this was the ranking of the top few Big 12 teams. And this is, let's call that the public ranking. But we're never quite sure that the public ranking reflects the true ranking of who's best, right? So it's, of course, Kansas State's the best, right? So let's presume like this is the actual ranking. Right? We want as much as possible to get that public ranking to reflect whatever the true ranking is. And the only way to figure that out is through competition, all right? So imagine that we're really obsessed with figuring out whether or not the true ranking, the public ranking of individuals or groups reflects the true ranking. If we are, then we're going to obey these rules, I claim. The first is what we'll call rank ambition. And rank ambition says you don't get to be humble. You don't get to be less than what you are. You have to, morally have to, try to achieve the highest ranking you can. If you think you can outcompete somebody who's above you in the ranking, you have an obligation to call them out and challenge them. Why? Well, if you really are, like, say, the third best, but you're occupying the role of 10th best, the ranking is distorted, right? And you have to try to undistort the ranking by occupying the spot you deserve. And you'll only get that if you challenge up. So it's just as bad on honor to accept a spot lower than you deserve as it is to accept the spot higher than you deserve. Okay, so let's call that principle rank ambition. This is sort of not a very Christian. This isn't, the Beatitudes. Right? It's coming from a very different place here. Rank humility, okay? But you can't challenge those much higher ranked than you. And much higher ranked parties can't accept challenges from those much lower ranked. So if any of you were in an academic orchestra, you probably had chairs, like chairs, first chair violin, second chair violin, and so forth. And if you want to move up in the chair ranking, you have to challenge those higher up than you. But you can't be last chair violinist and challenge first chair violinist, right? You got to earn that spot by challenging up. And that makes practical sense too, right? I mean, if we all got to challenge the person at the top, the person at the top would always have to be defending her spot from everybody, right? But the first chair violinist should only have to accept challenges from the second chair violinist. Shouldn't have to accept challenges from the lowest chair violinist. That person has an earned right to challenge you. And likewise, it makes no sense to challenge below you, right? Why would you want to challenge below you? Be below yourself, all right? Unless you felt like you didn't deserve the spot you have. So you can't bully below you. We'll talk more about that. If you're challenged though by a party that has a right to challenge you, like if your first chair violinist and second chair violinist challenges you, you can't duck the challenge. This is a term from boxing. So you can't duck a legitimate challenge to your rank again because that would distort the ranking, right? More principles, no bullying. You mustn't aggress upon or challenge those of lower rank. Now, the way the word bullying gets used today isn't quite the way the word bullying used to be used. The word bullying used to be used only when a stronger party aggresses on a weaker party. Now it sort of is being used for any sort of aggression whatsoever. But back in the day, it was very much an honor concept that bullying only could be from a stronger party to a weaker party. And honor owns that whole bullying stuff. But people don't realize that yet. Fair play. This is really important. Competition for rank must be fair. And I mean, that's obvious enough. How are we going to tell who's really the most excellent if the competition isn't fair? If the field is tilted in one person's favor or another, if the empires are bribed or something like that. Friendly play, you can only compete against the honorable. So if somebody's a cheater, for instance, you can't even compete against them. It's dishonorable for you to even compete against somebody who's dishonorable. And rank respect, that you have to show different sorts of respect for people with different sorts of rank. So this is a very non-egalitarian aspect. This cuts against both liberal tendencies and Christian tendencies and so forth. Now, I'm going to skip some more stuff there, but if